know you can't control me, baby. You need a real one in your life. Them bitches ain't gonna give it to you, right? I'd rather be your B-I-T-C-H.
Hi everyone, I'm Zaria,
And I'm Maika.
and this is Calming the Chaos. So, we would like to let you guys know that if you guys want to send us any messages, we have a new segment that's going to be called the Bitch Inbox, where you can just bitch, tell us stories, literally anything, because we want all the tea, sis.
Welcome back to episode 4. If you've made it this far, congratulations. All the snaps.
Yes.
So, as you know, Pride Month is over. Boo, throwing tomatoes. But just because Pride Month is over doesn't mean Pride is over. Like, it's an all-time thing. Pride is all year round. Pride is within us. And this episode is kind of like a Pride recap. So, first, I'm going to get into some history for y'all. So, Pride became very revolutionary in June 27th through 29th in 1969 with the Stonewall riots in New York City. Now, most of y'all probably don't know what the Stonewall riots are, so I'm going to give you a little backstory. So, according to LBGTQhistory.org, the Stonewall Inn was a gay bar in Greenwich Village in New York City. In response to an unprovoked police raid on an early Sunday morning, over 400 people, including gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and even straight people, protested their treatment and pushed the police away from the area. Some level of rioting continued over the next 6 nights, which closed the Stonewall Inn. The Stonewall riots became a pivotal and defining moment for gay rights. Some of the key people at the riots who went on to tell their stories were Sylvia Rivera, Marsha P. Johnson, Dick Leach, Seymour Pine, and Craig Rodwell.
Well, since you talked about Marsha P. Johnson, I'm going to give a little spiel on her and a few other key people around this time. So, Marsha P. Johnson, she was born in 1945 and she died in 1992. She would cheekily tell people the P stood for Pay It No Mind, was an outspoken transgender rights activist, and is reported to be one of the central figures of the historic Stonewall Uprising of 1969. Along with fellow trans activist Sylvia Rivera, Johnson helped form Street Transgender Action Revolutionaries, a radical political organization that provided housing and other forms of support to homeless queer youth and sex workers in Manhattan. She also performed with the drag performance troupe Hot Peaches from 1972 through the 90s and was an AIDS activist with the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. Barbara Jordan was born 1936 and died in 1996. Jordan, a civil rights leader and attorney, became the first African American elected to the Texas Senate in 1966, and the first woman and first African American elected to Congress from Texas in 1972. Jordan was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Bill Clinton in 1994 for her work as a political trailblazer. While Jordan never explicitly acknowledged her sexual orientation in public, she was open about her life partner of nearly 30 years, Nancy Earl. Miss Major Griffin Gracie, born 1940, and from what I can see, she is still alive today. Miss Major is black, transgender woman and activist at the forefront of the fight for trans rights. She faced many hurdles during her life, including homelessness and incarceration, and it's these challenges that fueled her activism. In 2005, Miss Major joined San Francisco based Transgender Variant and Intersex Justice Project as a staff organizer, and later as executive director to lead the group's efforts advocating for incarcerated trans women. She has often spoken out against the prison system, which she says contributes to the incarceration of transgender individuals, particularly trans people of color and those with low incomes. Now 79, Miss Major, known to many people simply as Mama, resides in Little Rock, Arkansas, where she continues to be a vocal activist. Andrea Jenkins, born 1961, and she still is alive today.
Ooh.
Jenkins made history in November 2017 by becoming the first openly transgender black woman elected to public office in the U.S., according to the LGBTQ advocacy groups and researchers. Jenkins, a Democrat, was one of two openly trans people to win a seat on the Minneapolis City Council in 2017. She is also a published poet and an oral historian at the University of Minnesota. Jenkins made history again in January 2022 when she was elected as the first transgender official in the U.S. to lead a city council. And I got all my information from NBCnews.com.
Wow, girl, I didn't know about any of these women, and I just learned all of that as well today, just now. And I find it very interesting that they were all African American women.
That's very empowering for our culture.
Very. So, another thing that I wanted to mention was a little bit of a timeline. So, the first Pride March was in 1970. In 1978, the rainbow flag became the gay pride symbol. In 2010, the U.S. Congress passed and President Barack Obama signed the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell so that gay and lesbian people could serve openly in the military. One person present at the signing ceremony in the White House was Frank Kamey, who had been released from military service in 1958 because of discriminatory policies against gay and lesbian people. In the 2015 Supreme Court case, Obergefell versus Hodges, the court voted 5-4 that the fundamental right to marry is guaranteed to same sex couples by both the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. This decision mandated that states must allow same sex couples to legally marry.
So we had a few people actually message us for the bitchin' box to do some anonymous stories of them coming out. And the first one reads, My coming out story. I realized I liked girls in high school. I was dating my high school sweetheart, and he was very abusive, controlling, jealous, violent, you name it. He didn't go to my school, so I was able to have a bit of freedom. So I had a friend who was curious, and we kissed one day. I was 16, she was religious, and did not talk to me again after the kiss. I told my boyfriend I was curious about girls, and he hit me. We broke up when I was 18. I told my family my mother didn't talk to me for over 6 years. My grandmother accepted me but said just stay feminine. Rest of the family accepted me for who I was. I stayed with women only until age 30. The relationship I was in was toxic, very abusive. I decided to look for love, not gender, and I found it with a man who accepts my love for the same sex.
Damn, that's crazy. But what I think is the most crazy is the fact that she was with a man and he was abusive, but then she finally found a woman. She was able to express her sexuality, and that relationship ended up being abusive as well. And it's like, no matter what gender, no matter what type of relationship you're in, there's going to be abuse everywhere. Just because you're gay doesn't mean it's always going to be happy.
Yes, and I feel like when you're dating a man, it can either go one of two ways that he either ends up really hating it, like in this case, or he ends up really like loving it and making a fetish out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I also realized that in situations where someone is curious and they try it with someone who's very religious, in this case, those religious people, they often tend to flee because, they're going to repent. Ask God for forgiveness because for some reason, loving and knowing who you love is a sin, which is not true. You love who you love, and it's just the same as being in a straight relationship.
I also feel like straight people are like they do more harm than gay people, and it's not to say that all gay people are a saint, but it's to say that straight people don't have as much compassion and grace as gay people do. And I feel like straight people kind of feel like they're almost more superior, but I also can't fully blame them because that's how America was basically raised to like believe that they
Mm-hmm.
were superior, and if you're anything but straight or white, you're not superior and you're less than.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. True. Very true. Well, from our next submission in our bitchin' box, we have another coming out story. It was the day I had received my toys. I had hid them in fear. Growing up in a very strict household, I was hanging out with my partner at the time. I left them at home, and my dad found them all laid out and told me to come home. When I got home, I was forced to throw them all out. I didn't even want to talk to my dad. I was livid. The next morning, my dad asked me why, and I said, I like guys and wanted to explore my sexuality, but you took that away from me. He said, not in my house with your family, but told me that I accept you for who you are and who you like. Later on, I gathered the toys and left them for my past partner to pick up, and they got them. Coming out to my mother, I was anxious, but she responded with, I always knew. I was grateful to have such open parents. I do understand where my father was coming from since I had siblings and if they would have found them. I am grateful for who I am. As they should. I really love that his mom was like, I always knew. Because it's like, it's such a sigh of relief. And it's like, damn, they knew this whole time. They didn't say nothing.
Right, honestly. And I also feel like I love that the parents did accept them and was able to look past them coming out. But can we just normalize not coming out and making it a big ordeal?
Making it a big presentation in front of the entire government.
Yes, like why can't we just like step out with a girlfriend or step out with the boyfriend if you're in the same sex relationship or whatever, or just date somebody transgender without anybody having to question it, or you having to stand up in front of the whole world and be like, I am gay, I am pan, I am transgender. Like, you don't have to
Announce
yeah,
yourself.
you like we should be it should be so normalized to the point you shouldn't have to just announce yourself. I automatically think everybody's a little bit gay, honestly.
Just a little bit. Not a lot, baby girl. Just a little bit.
Yeah, like I literally just I don't know, I automatically just think that because you just never know, and I feel like 9 times out of 10 people are mainly like bi at least that I meet or curious. So I just put everybody in this bubble of just like curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Curiosity until you find your fit.
Yeah.
So this is the end of our submissions in our bitchin' box, but we do have some other stories that we had found online.
I'll go first. In between the multiple ignorant and rejecting things my mom told me, like imagine all the things people will say, she said something about this not being Europe and that if I wanted that kind of lifestyle, I should just move to a more gay country. And she said, and I am not even kidding, it's like your dad cheating on me. We are not going to scream it to the world. You can live a happy life in secret. I now know that if I come out to the world, and by world I mean my family and close friends, my mom will not offer any support and that my dad is cheating on my mom. One can learn so many things in one day.
Damn. So she related being openly gay to
Being openly cheated on.
damn.
I don't think it's the same,
It's
sis.
not the same thing. And what does she mean by like in Europe or something?
Do they just be swinging it out there?
I mean, they got those nude beaches where you can just be out doing whatever the fuck you want. But what she mean like a more gay country?
What's gayer than America?
Exactly.
Shit.
Exactly. Home of the free, home of the gay.
Well, free, quote unquote.
Quote on fucking quote.
Well, I have another one. And this one says, when I came out to my parents, they made me go talk to the church bishop. I was told I'm broken, that they were taking me to counseling to help fix me, and that if things got worse, they would have to take more drastic actions. They told me it's just a phase and that I could be fixed. They also forbidded me from telling anyone. To this day, they cannot accept me that I am gay. When I told my friends, everything seemed fine and dandy at first. Then I found out a bunch of them were talking about me behind my back, and they asked me to keep my sexuality to myself because it would be easier for them. It was horrible.
Girl, those ain't friends.
No,
I
I feel
don't care
like it
what you
should be.
say. Those are not friends.
Well, it should be easier to come out to your friends than your family, anyways. Your friends should just openly accept you for who you are. I mean, it's not always the case, but throw those friends away.
They're trash.
Literally.
Basura.
Literally. And I also want to talk about like going to the bishop and that more drastic measures would have to happen if this person didn't change their ways. I just want to talk about like the conversion camps and stuff that people have. I feel like that is so outdated, and I actually think, if I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me if I am wrong, that it is illegal now to do conversion camps because so many people committed suicide during that time or ran away, never to be found again because of their parents trying to change them and letting them live with a stranger and go to church and do all these things with a stranger. But if they messed up one time, they're getting hit, abused, like mentally abused.
Starved.
Yes.
Oh, man, that's ridiculous.
I found my 2 stories at liveabout.com.
So I have 3 more stories, and they're all from today.com. This first one says, I was 13 years old and had spent a long time watching YouTube videos about what it meant to be gay and what it meant to come out. I started coming out to my friends' online queer communities who helped me find the courage to eventually tell my parents. One night, I typed up a really long message to them on my iPad explaining that I was gay and that I was sorry. I tried to change. This is just who I am. I locked my door and tried to hide under my bed. 2 minutes later, my dad had picked the lock. They came in and started hugging me and told me that they still loved me and accept me no matter what. I was still their son. That hits me when they said that they tried to hide under the bed. Like they were so scared of how their parents would react that they had to lock the door and hide. The fact that someone is so scared to come out to their parents and so scared to see their reaction. I'm glad they got the reaction that they did, but that fear is a scary feeling. And I also hate the fact that they were saying that they were sorry for who they were and for who they love. They shouldn't have to apologize for that.
I think it was a beautiful thing how the parents reacted. Like, I wish more parents would react that way.
Yeah.
Because we just got to get rid of like this old mindset that like gay is just bad. Like, it's not bad. There's way worse things and sins or whatever that are far worse than just being gay. And honestly, they're all sins. Not one is worse than the other in God's eyes.
And all can be forgiven.
Yes, all can be forgiven.
So another story that I had starts like, I grew up in a mostly conservative suburb as a closeted gay Asian kid. It was the summer between 8th and ninth grade. My mom was getting ready for work. I sat her down and said, "I'm gay." It was one of those moments that I'll never forget. That feeling of saying something you know you can never unsay. My mom was very supportive and accepting. She said, "Yeah, I kind of had my suspicions, and it wasn't a huge surprise." She encouraged me to tell my dad, who's an immigrant from Hong Kong and grew up in a different understanding of sexuality and family. I told him, he nodded thoughtfully and said, "But how do you know?" And I said, "How do you know you're straight?" And he said, "Okay, that makes sense to me." And that was the end of the conversation. I think it's crazy how it I never thought of it that way to ask that question, like, well, how do you know you're straight?
Hmm.
Like, that's a good comeback for that type of question of how you know you're gay.
Right. I definitely feel like asking that question made a lot of sense in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Most people can't even think off the fly to even ask that question. You kind of just get like overwhelmed with the fear of already coming out, and now like people are interrogating you to see if you really are gay when
Mm-hmm.
you know this. And this will be another story a little bit later, but I just hate how like people equate fear with you not really being who you are because you're scared to be that person or scared to come out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just my take on it.
I don't know. I just love that the dad was so understanding, especially because he has different views on
Yes.
sexuality and family.
Mhm.
And when his own son is going through it, he wasn't quick to judge. He just asked one question,
Mhm.
and he got his answer. And he's like, "I understand that," and let that be the end of it.
And it's good because it's a minority, which
Mm-hmm.
can go either way when you're a minority. I mean, for anybody really, but like minorities really hate when you just come out as anything other than just
The norm.
yeah, the norm. Pretty much
Or
whatever.
anything non-Christian.
Yes, whatever even is the norm, I guess. But do you have another
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, I have one more.
Okay.
So this last one says, "My girlfriend had written me some love letters, and my nosy little sister found them in a drawer and gave them to my mother. Back then, in the late 60s, being openly gay wasn't heard of. I was put out of the house. I was homeless. I slept in hallways and underneath cars. I couldn't go back home. A lady I used to babysit for found me and took me in. But then she died on my 23rd birthday. Since then, I had been living on my own, surviving. I think I did pretty good. Girl, you did your best."
I mean, well, yeah, with what you were given.
Especially what she said, the late 60s.
Yeah,
Like that was
that
way
was survival
Mhm.
mode.
That was before the Stonewall riot. So,
Oh, so that was really a no-no.
yeah. Whew.
These stories are serious.
Yeah. But those are all the stories that we have that we found on the internet. But y'all want to know a little something, something? Y'all want to hear my coming out story?
Sure, go ahead and tell it.
All right. Well, I'm bisexual, guys. And I realized that I liked women at a very, very young age. I had my first female kiss in first grade behind my teacher's desk. It was a great time.
Not behind the teacher's
Yeah.
desk.
Well, we
What
just
is this
snuck.
after dark?
We were in first grade. We were curious, and we never saw each other outside of school. So we kind of like hid behind the desk just to kiss once, just to see what it was like, and then just
Forget
go
about
back to
it.
normal.
Yeah.
But so that was when I had like my first girl kiss that actually really meant a lot to me. But I never asked my first girl out until the 7th grade, I think. I wrote on a little love note, I was like, "Will you go out with me, yes or no?" And she said yes. And I was so excited. And then I got home and I was like, wait, how am I going to tell my mother this? I was like, I have to figure out how to tell this to my mom. So I just had to build up the courage and I was like, all right, Mom, I have a girlfriend. And she was like, oh, okay. You have any pictures? And I was like, yeah, I have pictures. And I just showed her a bunch of like pictures of her. And I think me and her had taken a picture, and I was like, yeah, this is her. She was like, oh, she's pretty, nice. Like, like she didn't really know how
like
to
the awkward, nice.
nice. But like she didn't really know how to respond because, well, honestly, being bisexual is not like a new thing for our family. It kind of runs within the family. So
Which
that's
is
why,
different. I've never heard of that.
yeah, like we have a lot of different people who are gay, bisexual, and straight. Like we have it all, really.
Yeah.
But yes, we aren't new to the LGBTQ
Community.
community. We're not new to that. So I guess when I told my mom, she was just like, oh, okay, like, welcome to the community kind of thing. So I think I'm very grateful. My dad actually had the opposite reaction. My best friend had given me a shirt that says, I like my men like I like my women. That's it. I'm bi. And that's what the shirt said, right? And I showed my dad, and he was like, you're bisexual? I was like, yeah. And he was like, okay. He kind of let it go for a little bit, but then we had went out to dinner that night, and I guess it was bothering him because then he mentioned, so you're not gonna have kids, you're not gonna get married, you're not gonna do all this like traditional shit that he thought I would do. And I'm like, I literally had to tell him, Dad, you can do that with a man or a woman. And personally, I am gonna have kids and I am gonna get married. It doesn't matter if I'm with a woman, with a man, with a transsexual, like it doesn't matter who I'm with. I'm gonna have kids. I wanna get married. Like those are things I see for myself that I wanna have happen. And my partner, whoever it may be, will be in that situation. And he just kind of didn't take it very well. And I was a little disappointed of the fact, but we kind of never talked about it ever since. So it kind of drifted away. And now we're cool, I guess. So Zaria, what's your story? What's your
put me in the
baggage?
hot seat.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I had my first girlfriend actually in 5th grade. I've never even kissed a girl. I think I just kind of thought like, okay, I like men, but like never really thought about it in that sense. I just knew that's what everybody else did, so I just followed
Went
suit.
along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't even a fact of like, do I like men or women? It was just like, this is what everybody else is doing, so I'm gonna do it too. I remember I did cheerleading, like Little League cheerleading back in the day, and this one girl was on the team, and she was like tomboyish,
Mm-hmm.
and she is now a he. I'm using like past tense of how it all came about.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I do respect his pronouns now.
Yes, but at the time
Yes,
they were a she.
yes. So she was like, "Oh, I think I'm gay or something like that, or lesbian, but I'm not really sure, and I'm kind of like scared." And my first instinct was just like, "I'll be gay with you." And like in 5th grade, now thought I was just bi because I still had the thought of men in my head. So I was like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
bisexual, but I'm dating this girl, and we were actually on and off for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we were dating for like maybe 6 months at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And what put a halt to that is I went to North Carolina with my aunt, and it was like late at night, but all the kids were still up or whatever. And she didn't care about that, but like my phone was sitting on like a table that you could hear the vibration from.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, "Who's texting you?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she was like, "Bring me your phone." So she took my phone. Me and my girlfriend at the time were in an argument, but she was reading all the messages. So she took my phone for like months. Well, I feel like I didn't have it for like pretty damn like almost a year.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my
In
god.
5th grade, okay? So all this shit's happening. I'm like crying. I'm upset. I'm asking when I'm gonna get my phone back. She is like, I don't know. And so like, she didn't give me my phone back, but she gave it to my grandma. I had to tell her the situation because my grandma was my guardian at the time. But she took me on that trip to go visit family. So we get back. Things are like hell or whatever. I mean, My grandma didn't really say much about it. I think they kind of just like didn't acknowledge it as
Mhm.
much as they should have because I was in 5th grade.
Well,
So it
yeah.
was kind of like, what do we
Like, oh, she's
say?
still young.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
this will
she's
probably
still.
change in a couple years. She's about to go to middle school, you know, whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it didn't change.
Mm.
I went to 6th grade and I came out as lesbian to like all my friends, everybody like who knew me. I came out as lesbian because I was like, fuck men. And I'm still fuck men. But anyway, so I went through middle school. I'm a lesbian. I dated so many people, but then I ended up dating this other girl, which at the time it was a bad idea. Like, so bad because I was at the end of my freshman year and she was at the end of her junior year.
Mm-mm.
I
Oh,
mean, not my freshman year, my 7th grade year. That's what I meant.
so you were going to 8th grade. She was gonna be a senior.
Yes.
Woo!
Yeah. It gets a little spicy, guys. I know.
Oh my.
But, so that happened, and we dated for about like 2.5 years. So, like, she was already graduated onto college, and I was starting high school in my freshman year or whatever.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that happened, but I had to like re-come out after our first year. I think I came out to my grandma and she was like, hold on a minute. After I came out to her, I like sat there, hands clamming, like shaking in my boots,
Oh my
about to
gosh.
shit myself. Literally, when I get mad or scared, it's not like a hot feeling. It's almost like the blood like rushes out of my body. Like I have
You
no
just go
blood.
cold.
Yes, I go cold like I'm dead.
Oof.
I don't know why it's always been like that, but usually people think of anger, like your blood pressure is going up. It's like I'm flatlining almost. She calls my aunt, the one that took my phone away in 5th grade, and she tells her the situation. She's like, okay, let me talk to Zaria. So I get on the phone, hysterically crying right now because I have them like interrogating me. My grandma's in the back being peanut gallery, and then I have my aunt on the phone, like, how do you know you're gay? I wish like that person said, how do you know you're straight? Because I
Mhm.
compared it to her relationship. She was like, well, how do you know you love this girl? I was like, because I feel strongly, like how you feel for my uncle that she was married to at the time or whatever is how I feel about this person. But she
Mhm.
was like, no, I love him. How do you know that you love her? Or whatever. Like basically like saying that like my
Like there's a
love,
difference.
yes, there's a difference or whatever.
There's not.
There really is not. And it kind of just like went from there, and she was like, well, you're too young to know what you want. And she did say that like if in the future, if when you're 18 or whatever, if you decide to still be gay or a lesbian or whatever, then I will fully support you.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. Conversation ended. My grandma is still like, nah, because she's the mother of a church, the founder of a church, and I
Mm.
grew up in the church.
Woo!
So,
Them church people.
yes. And she was like trying to get my aunt to basically kind of convert me back to being straight. And she was like, oh, you're going to go over to your aunt. She's going to have you call that girl so that you could tell her that you can't be gay. And I stood up for myself. I was like, I don't know what you mean by that, but whether I'm with this girl or not, I am still going to be gay. Like literally and she even had the nerve to ask me, do you even know how women have sex? Well, duh. That's why I'm here. Like, okay, like what is your point? And I'm not gonna talk to you about it with my grandma. Like you just want to know if I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing. Do you know what you're doing? Like,
Do you know? The
right,
audacity.
literally. So that's pretty much like it. And it kind of just like, whatever. And I just started bringing people around. Not really like people. The only one that's actually like out of all the girls that I've dated that has been around my family is the one I'm with now.
Yeah.
Because we started dating actually back in like 2015. And her coming out story is the one that I need to hear. I don't know why I didn't ask her so I could tell people. I should honestly call her up and be like, bro, can you tell your coming out story? Because it is a wild one. We were on and off for the first couple of years because her mom didn't agree.
Wow.
That's literally the only reason why we kept breaking up. And we would have been together probably all throughout that time if it wasn't for her mom.
Yeah.
But
Guys, if you want to tell us your coming out story, you still can in the comments of this video. If you want to do it anonymously, you can send it to us on Instagram at calminthechaos_22. Again, that's calminthechaos_22.
But yeah, so I think that's really it about my coming out story. I mean, my grandmother, she has since passed, but she was accepting to the point like she would ask about my girlfriend too, and she would call me and be like, "Hey, how's your girlfriend doing?" or whatever.
Like
and
in the
stuff.
end, it settled down.
Yeah. And everybody accepts me to this day, and I've been with the same person. I think that also makes it easier too, because I've been with the same person for years. So,
All right. Well, happy Pride. I hope you guys had an amazing Pride month. And even though, like I said, even though Pride month is over, the party still keeps going.
yes. And we hope that you guys all enjoyed episode 4. We hope that you guys start to give us a little bit more feedback, and please message us or like DM us in the bitchin' box at calmingthechaos_22. And we really hope to see you guys next time. I'm Zaria.
And I'm Maika.
And this is
Calming the Chaos.
I'd rather be your
Bye.